Could it be that we are a resurrected demigod? Another Lord Tuber already discussed the fact that in the intro scene of our revival, noises can be heard in the background that resemble the wandering mausoleums. Let's take a look at the Wandering Mausoleums and the Mausoleum Knights. The Wandering Mausoleums are home to soulless demigods, as revealed by the Mausoleum Soldier's Ashes and the Mausoleum Surcoat. Mausoleum Soldier's Ashes. The mausoleum is where the bodies of soulless demigods are lain to rest, and these soldiers followed their masters into death by severing their own heads from their bodies. Mausoleum Surcoat. Armor worn by headless soldiers who endlessly guard their wandering mausoleums. The surcoat depicts the mausoleum bell, which rings in constant mourning for the soulless demigods. Obviously, the demigods were alive and died in the past. The mausoleum knights and soldiers followed them into death. Godwyn was the first demigod to die, so the others only died after this event. The mausoleums have bells that ring continuously in mourning for the fallen demigods. Bells are associated mostly with calling spirits. For example, we have the spirit calling bell, the wraith calling bell, and also grave glove wards that point this out. Spirit calling bell. A bell capable of summoning various spirits from ashen remains. Wraith calling bell. Ring bell, using FP to summon brawling wraiths. Wraiths are said to be the vengeful spirits of those who died when cursed. Grave glove ward, each a soundless bell used to summon spirits. The spirit ash of Lutel, the Headless, tells us, spirit of a headless knight who leads the mausoleum soldiers. Lutel sacrificed her life so that in death she could continue to protect the soulless demigod until their revival, earning her the hero's honor of earthly burial. Together with the information from Lutel, we can assume that the mausoleum knights and soldiers are protecting the mausoleums because they are waiting for the resurrection of the demigods. The bells serve to summon the souls of the demigods. Most of the mausoleum soldiers and knights can be found in the nameless Eternal City, close to the corpse of Godwyn. Interestingly, some mausoleum knights have weapons surrounded by a golden flame, which builds up Deathblight when hit. Deathblight is associated primarily with Godwyn. Could it be that the mausoleum knights are also waiting for Godwyn to rise again? In Castle Soul, we encounter spirits who say the following: Lord Mikela, forgive me. The sun has not been swallowed. Our prayers were lacking. Your comrade remains soulless. I will never set my eyes upon it now, your divine harlotry. The other one says, O great sun, frigid sun of soul, surrender yourself to the eclipse. Grant life to the soulless bones. Both messages are about the occurrence of an eclipse and the resurrection of a soulless demigod. We find another item in Castle Soul, the Eclipse Shodel, storied sword and treasure of Castle Soul that depicts an eclipsed sun drained of color. In Soul, the sight of an eclipse inspires a dreadful awe, preventing an onlooker from averting his gaze. The skill reads, Death Flare. Set the lusterless sun ablaze with the Prince of Death's flames, inflicting the death ailment upon foes. It becomes clear that the black golden flames are the flames of Godwyn. I think that the term drained of color can be roughly equated with the meaning soulless. This is most evident in the miniature doll of Ranni. The moment Ranni's spirit leaves the doll, it appears rather grey and, according to its description, is merely a shell. The smithing stones and the glove wards also contain the same clue. The ghost glowworts have a spirit around them and appear rather bluish. The grave glowworts, on the other hand, lack a spirit and also appear grey. The somber smithing stones, with the description drained of color, are also depicted more in black and white. Looking at all of them together, it becomes clear that the description drained of color means that there is no spirit or soul present. The eclipse, described as drained of color, thus soulless, could represent the soulless demigods. The eclipse shuttle, which represents the eclipsed sun drained of color, filled by the flame of Godwyn when the talent Death Flare is used, might symbolize how the body of a soulless demigod takes in Godwyn's soul. Interpreted this way, the eclipse shuttle represents Godwyn's resurrection. The mark of the eclipse can also be found on the Mausoleum Knights. Apart from the fact that some of them carry the flame of Godwyn, they also bear the symbol of the eclipse on their cape and on their great shield. Furthermore, there is the Eclipse Crest Theta shield. Eclipse Crest Theta shield. The sun in eclipse is said to be the symbol of the wandering mausoleum, where the soulless demigods slumber. The Eclipse Crest Great Shield reads, Metal Great Shield painted with the sun in eclipse, carried by the headless Mausoleum Knights. The eclipsed sun, drained of color, is the protective star of soulless demigods. It aids the Mausoleum Knights by keeping destined death at bay. In this case, the eclipsed sun, drained of color, alludes to a ritual that enables the Mausoleum Knights to protect the wandering mausoleums. This is probably the ritual of the sacrificial axe, which detaches one's own soul from one's self. The fact that it is the ritual of the sacrificial axe is indicated by the wing ornaments on the backs of the Mausoleum Knights and the resulting connection to the death birds. In the armor of the Mausoleum Knights it says, Armor worn by headless knights who endlessly guard the wandering mausoleum. The wing-shaped ornaments on its back evoke the death bird, a self-inflicted curse that ties the spirits of these loyal knights to the land, having willingly beheaded themselves so that they may serve their masters in death. The sacrificial axe says, Hatchet used in ancient sacrificial rite. A deathbird is depicted as a malevolent deity. The power of the rite yet lingers. A small amount of FP is restored upon slaying a foe. The still present power of the ritual is apparently the Mausoleum Knights and soldiers. The fact that FP is restored when killing an enemy can be interpreted as depriving the soul or spirit. According to the armor of the Mausoleum Knights, the souls are bound to the land. The skulls at the wandering mausoleums are probably those of the Mausoleum Knights and soldiers and contain their souls, which keep the mausoleum moving. The spectral beings without heads are therefore soulless beings, which have the eclipse as a symbol at the point where the head was severed. The cross-section at the neck in this case represents the eclipse and the ritual of the sacrificial axe. The soulless demigods in the mausoleums are also headless as a sign of being soulless. With the help of the ritual and the binding of the soul to the wandering mausoleums, the Mausoleum Knights apparently try to keep out destined death, the power of the Rune of Death. This is also described in the Eclipse Crest Great Shield. The eclipsed sun, drained of color, is the protective star of soulless demigods. It aids the Mausoleum Knights by keeping destined death at bay. Could it be that similar preparations have been made for us in the Chapel of Anticipation? Perhaps it was the abyss around the Chapel of Anticipation that stopped the power of the Rune of Death, in a similar way to the wandering mausoleums, which tried to keep it out by walking. There is even a bell in Stormvale that may have had the same function as those of the wandering mausoleums, to lead the soul of Godwyn to Stormvale. Let's summarize. The Mausoleum Knights protect soulless demigods from the power of the Rune of Death. The Mausoleum Knights await the resurrection of their masters. Some Mausoleum Knights used the flame of the Death Prince Godwyn and apparently have some kind of relationship with him. The symbol of the eclipse is closely linked to the Mausoleum Knights and Godwyn, and the eclipse shoulder might symbolize the resurrection of Godwyn.